Welcome, everyone. I'm really excited to be here with you for this 90-minute program called Becoming Homo Universalis, 52 Codes for Embodying Your Evolutionary Self. We're going to share for 60 minutes, and then we're going to do a live Q&A for 30 minutes. So please make sure to make note of questions that you want to bring to Barbara and me a little later in this program. I'm Steve Farrell, the Worldwide Executive Director of Humanities Team. I'm here with Barbara Marx Hubbard. We're going to talk about Barbara's life and leadership and call to action that we've been moved to create together that will extend over 52 weeks. Awaken the new species within you. It's a process to embody Homo Universalis, our universal self. First, as we get started, I'm going to give Barbara a proper introduction. Buckminster Fuller said this about Barbara: "There is no doubt in my mind that Barbara Marx Hubbard, who helped introduce the concept of futurism to society, is the best informed human now alive regarding futurism and the foresights it has produced." Deepak Chopra said, "Barbara Marx Hubbard has become the voice for conscious evolution of our times." And Marianne Williamson had this to say: "Barbara Marx Hubbard is one of America's brightest lights. She makes this very complicated moment in history seem like a glorious opportunity. She gives guidance and she gives hope." So true, Marianne. Neil Donald Walsh wrote Barbara's biography, The Mother of Invention. In the book, he had these things to share that Barbara calls us to: a higher purpose, a greater calling, a more loving and harmonious way of living, a grander notion of who we are and who we could be, and a more elevated, unified, intentioned expression of life itself. In Neil's book, he quotes from something that she wrote in her journal. It said this: "The kingdom of Homo Universalis during the birth process on a planet is different from that which Jesus outlined 2,000 years ago. That was then, and this is now. Now is the birth process on planet Earth. It's vital that you embody, grow into, and become a being on the other side of the veil, alive, tangible, and real to yourself to help bring other people through. To do so, you cannot be alone, either on this earth or beyond. But for the next step, you need to be with at least one other who has already made it through in another planetary sequence. That is why I am now coming directly to you." I believe Barbara is an exemplar, but she rejects this and says, no. She says, no, I can't do that, and I'm not being asked to do that. Not an exemplar, but rather an elder, a catalyst for so many others who are right at the threshold of emergence. And welcome to this program, Barbara. Great to be with you.
Thank you, Steve. Thank you so much.
Barbara, I'm going to ask you about your capacity as a leader and elder, but I want to share just a little bit of your story first as we get started here. As many people know, you grew up in a life of privilege in New York City. Your dad owned a toy company. You don't share this very often, but you invested your time and have given up all of your wealth to pursue the dream that you have about an emerging humanity and the earth. And then people do often hear your story where early in your life you met President Eisenhower and you asked him, "What is the meaning of our power that is good?" He didn't have a good answer. So this became your life work. Your life, of course, is about this. And you become an extraordinary teacher, leader, and elder, and hopefully you won't slap my hand for saying that. Birth 2012 is only one of the iconic things that you've been a leader and teacher in. As people who are close to Barbara know, when she walks into a room, there is immense respect. People want to be in her presence. They respect her, trust her, and want to be like her. Barbara embodies genius, but has great humility. In fact, she asked me not to praise her during this program. So Barbara, again, welcome to the program. And, if I can just ask you, when did you realize that you had this capacity and how did you develop it?
Well, I just wanted to say something when you're talking about what I feel about myself right now. I use the word, I feel I'm a new norm. There's a normalcy in all of us. And it started for me really when the US dropped the atomic bombs on Japan. And I was about 15 years old, and I woke up to the realization that we, not only for the nuclear, but in many, many ways, are going to have powers that we used to attribute to our ancient mythological gods. And I could see from the way we were behaving that if we use that power as we already are using power, we would destroy everything. So I guess I started with a really great question. What if we don't misuse the power? What if science, industry, technology, spirituality is actually given to us for a great future? So I would say I started with an intuition that there's meaning in our crises. Whether it be our personal life, my own life as a housewife in Lakeville with 5 children, depression, whatever it was, I always looked for meaning, and that turned me on to finding it.
Awesome. Well, and found it you have. And Barbara, a few months ago, you were inspired to create a call to action named Awaken New Species. You were clear that this was going to be a call, not a course. Can you just talk a little bit about the epiphany or just how that came to you?
Well, when I said I feel not only am I a new norm, but everybody is on a planet now with all these immense powers. And I began to put together 3 levels of power. Our spiritual evolution, where we're feeling ever more yearning to be one with the source, however we say it. Number 2, our vocational arousal. So many of us, like me, I'm 88 years old. Why am I so excited? Why are you so excited, Steve? It seems we're vocationally aroused to create more, love, do more. Innovations are happening everywhere on the planet. So spiritual evolution, vocational, social evolution, and then high tech, nanotech, biotech, quantum computing, artificial intelligence, space travel, powers that if they are misused can destroy the planet. But if they are guided by our spirituality and our innovations and creativity, you know what? We will be a new species. And then I thought, well, maybe I should be awakening that awareness, first of all, in myself. I am a member of an awakening species to all of this. And then you came in, Steve. I really didn't know about this, how to do this, when you said, in order for us to have global oneness, we have to be aware we are awakening to something more, something greater, something kinder, something more loving, something more spiritual, and something more powerful. And I want to go back to the question to President Eisenhower when I said, what do you think is the meaning of our new power that's good, military, industrial? And he didn't just have no idea. He said, he didn't just nod. He said, I have no idea. And what I discovered I tried the church, I tried Bryn Mawr College, I tried President Eisenhower, and I discovered nobody knew the meaning of this radical new power that's good. So I decided to try to find out. I would say that's really what made my life as a question.
And Barbara, I'll just add, you also shared the personal story of you were doing a coaching session and you were telling me you realized during that coaching session, my God, I've really I'm now kind of fully embodying this. In my own evolutionary step, I've really come fully into it.
Well, I've created a name for this emerging humanity. I'm calling us Homo Universalis. So from Homo Neanderthal to Homo sapiens sapiens to Homo Universalis, that I think came up in the great spiritual leaders of the past. But in general, most of us could not do what a Buddha could do or a Jesus could do at all. So I began to realize that we actually have the power, and that we have the power spiritually, socially, and high tech, that we need to awaken everybody who feels something new is emerging in you and me, and put that newness way above, oh yes, I think I have a little bit of growth in me. Put the newness in the category of I'm becoming a new humanity. I'm becoming more than has ever existed before. I'm becoming what visions we've had of the past is happening to me. And I felt excited. I mean, it's kind of weird to be able to say, oh, I've discovered we're becoming a new species. So you ask me what it feels like. The way I do it, I ask myself, I am Homo Universalis. How does it feel? And I write in my journal. And here's at least 2 or 3 thoughts. It feels like my spirituality is ever deeper in touch with source, and that the impulse in me is the same source that creates the whole universe. Hugely empowering. If the source inside of you is the same source that creates the entire universe. So that's a spirituality awakening. And I say, okay, I'm going to feel that. Number 2 is vocation. Now, some person said to me maybe 4 years ago, Barbara, why don't you declare victory and retire? You know, you're 85 or something. And I tried. I tried to retire. I mean, I tried to say, okay, you've done enough. And I got depressed. So then I had to wake up to there was something more. And this, the way I became awakened transformed me to begin to discover a new vocation as an awakening human. And I didn't know what to do. I was lost for about 4 or 5 years until on the inner plane, I asked my beloved father, who was a toy maker, I said, Dad, what should I do now? And he said, awaken the species, Barbara.
And God knows.
And he used to say to me, Barbara, he said, you could sell anything if you knew what to sell. Oh, well, I had no idea what to sell. This is not selling. But what if I'm awakened to communicate to as many human beings as possible that we're awakening as a co-evolving, co-creative universal species? That's worth selling, I said to my inner father. And he nodded. So, you know, and it's interesting that Neil Donald Walsh has just come out with a book called Awaken the Species, as a series of conversations with God. And I thought maybe, you know, it's around now. And now it's coming out. But I'm very eager to know what other people feel about this, including all of us and you, Steve.
Well, I'm going to go to just how you're training others to embody it. But before I do, Barbara, I just want to share that what a synchronicity, and I'll even go so far as to say what a God job or divine hand thing, right? Because it's no coincidence that Neil would be coming out with a book now in 2017 with all of what's going on in the world called Awakening Species. And probably no coincidence at all that on the inner plane, your father's saying, Barbara, awaken the species. Clearly, we're at the end of a runway here. We need to awaken the species both for ourselves and for the planet. So that's just how it feels to me. And by the way, Barbara and I are, as we're talking about this, we will later in the program share about something called Awaken New Species. There's a website, Awaken New Species, where you can go to learn more about something that's coming. But Barbara, let's just go a little deeper here. So you've really embodied this. You've stepped into it. How do you train others to embody it and to step into it, and to do this outside of the safe container of something like this, in a program like this, where we're sitting at our video, people know that there are others around the world watching. You and I are chatting about this. It's kind of easy to feel into it, but how do you train people to live into it when they're in the Safeway parking lot, talking to a neighbor in the workplace, etc.?
Well, the way I do that is really by asking them to go within and get in touch with their deepest aspiration to become more. And what I've discovered, there isn't a person I've ever talked to. You have to say it gently. You can't just, put it in a difficult way. But if you ask people, do you feel there's something more in you that you would like to give, express, become, share, or create? I haven't met anybody who is not evolving. And so I began to realize if I could invite anyone who feels that inner growth to come together. And that's why I'm so excited about actually doing our internet program together. Because when we meet each other, we turn on. It's almost impossible to affirm this in yourself alone. And so by joining together, even my work with you, Steve, the very fact that you said you want to bring this forward through all of the work that you've done, what did that do inside of me? It made me feel, oh, this is true. This is not a myth. This is not a personal growth issue, Barbara. You're crossing the threshold from somebody who's trying to be greater and connecting and always had a vocation, to somebody who's part of a systemic change, perhaps as great as from Neanderthal to Homo sapiens. Oh my God. Now I'm just saying to everybody, what if that's true? We'll have to get together to find out.
And I want to just share too, many of you, or maybe most of you know, Barbara now lives in Colorado, not far from me. She lives at Sunrise Ranch in Loveland, Colorado. And there are many people there, and many people in California where Barbara used to live in various locations, Northern and Southern California. And many people around the world that she's in touch with now that are really living this fully. And probably a lot of you, are living it fully, maybe want to stretch out into something, because it's a never-ending journey, right? I think even Barbara would share there's no goalpost that we walk through and we're there and there's nothing more to do or to learn or to embody. It's one of these, it's a journey really to the end of our lifetime of stepping into it more deeply. And maybe you even want to comment on that, Barbara.
I do, because we're at the very beginning of Homo Universalis. And sometimes I project ourselves, let's say 25 years or 50 years, which is very short in evolutionary time. And we imagine that we have been able to spiritually and socially act with love, guiding the new powers of humanity toward a universal species in a universe of billions of other galaxies, folks. Then I realize that where we are is at the threshold of the new. But the more of us that cross the threshold of Homo Universalis together, by bringing forward what's new in you and me, together, we become a resonant field. And in the resounding of resonance of two or more gathered in this consciousness, everybody evolves. It's just natural. And so I feel that by doing this, we're activating what's already happening at the very beginning of a new threshold for humanity. And I'd just like to say, because we've been made aware that we could destroy our life support system by everything we're now doing if we continue to grow in the womb of Earth without caring for our environment and so forth. We see that. But very few of us see what we could become if we turn our new powers to heal the Earth, free the people, explore the universe. Once you see that vision, without vision, people perish. With vision, we flourish.
I'm into that, and it's so fun I'll call it dance with you, Barbara. It's really marvelous, because I do think it is a bit of a divine tap on the shoulder, a God job, a synchronicity that you're surfacing to really, and realizing this is yours to do here now. And not just yours, it's a planetary call. You're very clear on that when you brought that to me.
And I wanted to say, you asked me how we do this. A little book called 52 Codes for Conscious Self-Evolution came to me over a period of about 10 years from what I'm calling my universal self. This is a self that has a memory of your future self. That it's sort of like a newborn baby. Might not be aware that it's born and it doesn't like it and it's crying, but nonetheless, it has inside itself a memory of it, how it might be when it's a year old. So I'm suggesting that humanity might be in pain now, many of us, and even in desolation of how our species is not evolving. But we are like a newborn planetary system. We've never come together as a whole system. We've never had the internet connecting us like this until very, very recently. And when Teilhard de Chardin said, when the noosphere, or the thinking layer of Earth, which is now social media, gets its collective eyes, in other words, you begin to put goodness and love into the internet together. He said, in his language, he was a Jesuit, said it's the Christification of the earth. And we're saying it's a planetary awakening in love. Why not?
The same thing in different words.
The planetary awakening in love, by more of us in love, in creativity, joining on internet, which we will during our course, will be serving to awaken our nervous system.
Yes, it will. Barbara, and this is good, because now how is this different, awaken new species? So how is this different from the ACE training and the journey of conscious evolutionary training that you did several years ago?
Well, because it's literally about joining together on internet in a field of resonance with keynote speakers like Ervin Laszlo and Nassim Haramein and Bruce Lipton and so on. But I had a lot of those on my teaching. But I'm going to ask, let's say, Ervin Laszlo, what's new in you, Ervin? What's new in you, Deepak? So the speakers are not going to be giving talks like they did on, the internet when I did it with Shift. They are going to be sharing what's emerging. And because they're right at the growing edge of life, these people, I think we're going to discover the new species together. And that absolutely did not happen as a teacher. I was teaching what I knew. And now I'm a new human discovering what we might become. That's really different.
That was the really appealing thing to me when you first called in to share of this idea. And originally it was just, you were just calling me as a friend, not we later, of course, collaboration. But what was so appealing was you were saying, no, this is experiential. This is what this has been embodied. And this is where we are now. This is the invitation for the earth, for humanity, to really step into it, embody it, express it, and in a sense, just as you said so beautifully, with new eyes, with love, looking out on the world as a new person, as a Homo Universalis, as you call it.
So this little book, because I took it from my journal, can I read 2 or 3 sentences from it as to how we're going to do this? Okay, so this is what I got. I had been talking to Nassim Haramein about, he felt he had seen extraterrestrials. I have never seen one, and I got annoyed. I said, give me contact. This is in my meditation. Okay, where are you? And here's what I got. You must stop and let us lift your vibrations. Prepare for your rendezvous with destiny. Refocus your integrated essence, that would be your good self, upward toward your universal self, Barbara, on the other side of the transition. That is, on the other side of humanity's effort to take the next step. Keep your attention on me. I am coded with your own evolution. I'm saying that to everyone who's going to be with us. Your unique higher self knows your own evolution. The script of your conscious evolution is coded within each one of you. To read it, simply put your attention on it. And we know from spiritual teaching, whatever you put your attention on grows. So for about 10 years, Steve, I put my attention through this little book and talking and teaching a little bit on that part of myself that already knows something of its own future. And here's what's happened to me. That future self came in. And I thought, oh my God, this works. By putting attention on this and working with others, as we will be doing, a group of us doing this, I would guess that everyone has a universal self within, a memory of their own potential self. And by being on a resonant field together for 52 weeks, each week, one of these from universal self, that we might have a shared breakthrough, a shared epiphany, that perhaps has never happened before.
Yeah, we've felt into that, haven't we? We've even said probably for ourselves too, you know, and we're deep, we're pretty far on this journey as the viewers are. But we'll probably be different people too once we go through this process that's relational.
It's the, you know, the resonant field of mass empathy. I'd like to bring in the word empathy. When I asked many years ago from an inner source, what would it take for the planet to make it through? And the word was mass empathy. We always have empathy, but we don't hold it. So somebody is struggling, there's terrible things happening, and then we are empathetic, but we don't stay empathetic. I'd like to suggest that during this year, this 52 weeks, but resonance and empathy will turn on because we're getting in touch with that inner part of ourselves that's already empathetic. You know what I mean?
So that it's like compassion and kindness and empathy and all of those things that are part of the sacred, which is who we are, which is part of what Homo Universalis is. That we're just getting more connected to that on a more constant basis, like as you mentioned, not as something temporary, but that's what, in fact, you know, maybe we can draw the contrast that between Homo sapien and Homo Universalis. I know you've thought a lot about this. This must be one of the differentiating features, but what are key differences?
Well, I think that Homo sapiens is obviously a brilliant self-conscious species and learned language and writing and created the powers of gods. Homo Universalis is a species at one with the source of creation running through it, which is love. Wow. But it's spiritual love activating you, have vocational arousal to be more and become more and do more. And it activates you to find partners. Here's another thing that I think will happen when we do this course is that people who will be on this they're on it because they're already attracted. That means everybody else is already attracted, and we're going to form up amazing type of partnerships during that year of people finding each other and getting turned on by people's vocations like health, education, economics, science, and technology. We'll have all of those vocations in the empathetic, opening mindset of a new emerging species finding each other, you know?
That's exciting, isn't it?
It is.
Part of to become a new emerging species on the earth, that we were born into the earth at this time. Makes me think of Marianne Williamson's comment that Barbara, you know, there's so many challenges in the world, we can all see that, but that you describe it as a glorious moment. Yes, our crisis is a birth. And our birth is Homo Universalis, and that's what this program is about, which is so cool, becoming Homo Universalis together. So one of the things, Barbara, that you share about this is people saying yes to their own potential, and then, you know, with how that becomes fulfilling in people's lives, but also then making a difference and becoming a part of this tipping point that's creating this positive future. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
I do. You know, my brother-in-law is Daniel Ellsberg, who released the Pentagon Papers, and he was telling me that he is trying to stop the expansion of nuclear weapons, obviously. And I was doing what I was doing, so he said to me, somewhat skeptically, Barbara, do you think anything you're doing could be effective? And I said, yes, I do. And I said, how about you, Dan? Do you think trying to stop this behavior pattern will be effective? He said, I really don't. So I began to think, why would I feel effective? And why would you feel effective? And everybody who is like this be effective? We're at the tip of the tipping point of the planetary evolution. So if you're going against the most powerful structure, it's very hard. If you're at the point of changing in the direction of evolution, which is higher consciousness, greater freedom, more loving order, that's the direction of billions of years. So if you and I are at the tipping point of the direction of evolution during a planetary crisis of birth of the new or devolution and destruction, that means every single person counts much more than, let's say, when I was originally born and started to go like this. I made no impact. And I remember my brother saying to me, Barbara, you think you are going to influence evolution? Like I was crazy. And now I'm at the tipping point with you and the millions of us. But we haven't often noticed we're at the tip of the tipping point because it's easier to see what isn't working than to see what is working.
Yeah, well, boy, we've come a long way, because I know you were recently at the Singularity Conference in San Francisco. People like Peter Diamond were there, and others. And you're a well-respected leader, as seen as somebody that's helping people to embody Homo Universalis. So we've come a ways, hopefully, from when Daniel shared that. And that's Patricia's husband.
Yes, my sister, and she will be on this wonderful year with us doing her meditations. And divine eros is her theme. Divine love.
Divine eros, I love it. So Barbara, just putting kind of practicality around this, a lot of people would probably say they feel stuck in their life. I know you even shared with me earlier in your life where you had moments where you felt stuck, or were there limitations maybe from relationship or work or family or whatever it is. So can you embody Homo Universalis even where you're coming from a place of stuckness or limitations that feel pretty extreme?
Well, when I think it was after my 5th child, I loved my children, I loved my husband, the house, the dogs, the cats, the gardens, everything, and I got depressed. So the depression was really severe. There was a time when I really didn't think I could articulate anything, and I loved everybody. So I felt not only depressed, but guilty. How dare I feel depressed with these wonderful children and a husband? What was wrong with me? And so I started to read, and I found Abraham Maslow. He studied wellness rather than sickness. He was a psychiatrist. And here's what he discovered. Every self-actualizing person had one thing in common: chosen vocation or work they found intrinsically self-rewarding and of service. And when I read that, I realized I loved my children and my family, but it wasn't my vocation. And I got to realize through study of Teilhard and Aurobindo and Buckminster Fuller and others that my vocation was to become a communicator of evolutionary potential. That was so what I did when I was depressed, I looked for a vocation. Because the reason I was depressed was not that I didn't love everybody. It was that inner impulse unique to me had not been discovered by me. And I would say to anybody who is listening that if you are depressed, undoubtedly, there's something wanting to be expressed in you that hasn't yet been fully expressed. So the first thing to do is say yes to anything that attracts you to become. Say yes, 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 even if it looks silly. And then take some steps toward what attracts you. And the universe, God put freedom in the system. God did not create a robotic universe. So everyone does have to make choice to say yes. And I think if we can serve each other here, it's to empower the yes in case you feel depressed or lost, which half of the world does, or more.
And the thing I love here, Barbara, is, of course, you've shared on many occasions, and in your books, you're known for this saying, our crisis precedes a birth. But where you bring it down to personal terms, and you've even talked with me about times in your life, which made me reflect on times in my own life, where you said, these things that were emerging as just big sticking points, stress, frustration, sickness, that this crisis was actually calling me to something, and I
Right.
needed to reach into it to understand what it was calling me to, and then I needed to go fully into that, and it's such great wisdom, because when we talk about being stuck and in limitations, and often we're in this kind of place of crisis, and I'm not sure that I know I consider myself very proactive, but I haven't always looked at crisis as, oh, this is great, there's a birth, what am I being called to?
Right.
I'm thinking that way now, and I give you credit for that.
It's really amazing. I didn't know this, of course, when I had that first depression. I was in my late 20s. Because I did find out, I had to look for a vocation, and I had to look for what attracted me, and I had to take initiative. I had to be causal. It didn't just happen to me. I had to be causal, be cause. And now I've gotten good at it. So let's say when I was 85 and somebody said, why don't you declare victory and retire? I felt this depression at 85. And I knew enough from having been 28 and doing this for all my life that I said, okay, what is it in you, Barbara, at 85 that wants to be awakened? Now, I didn't know, but I knew it was there. And look what's happened to me, Steve. This is it. When I was depressed at 85, and now I'm just about 88, in those years, what wanted to be expressed in me was this new species. I didn't know that. I had to search around.
I want to, you said be causal too, because I want to, this is another thing, because one of the things we've talked about is as we grow, in this case, become Homo Universalis, in many cases we're married, we have kids. So can we bring people along? Can we operate effectively at work? And you immediately went to this be causal thing of, yes, that's the whole point.
Yes, one of my favorite stories is when I realized I had to be causal, and I had to move from Lakeville to New York City. I could not do my work. So my little 9-year-old son was with me, and I was going to take 5 children to Washington, D.C. Well, they didn't particularly like that. And I said, Wade, I'm so eager for you to come with me, and we're going to do great things. Of course, he didn't like it at all, but he put his little arms around me. He's 9 years old. And he said, Mom, you're doing what mothers are supposed to do. You're trying to create a better future for your children. I want to come with you. Now, this is a 9-year-old child. You're doing what mothers are supposed to do. So I'd like to say this to young women as well as to women over 50. Young women, many young women today are able to say, should I marry? Should I not marry? Should I have children? Should I not have children? It didn't used to be a question. Huge questions for the younger people. And the answer is, you got to do what attracts you, whether or not you get married. Because if you think marriage will heal it all, and having many children, unless your vocation is motherhood, you will not be necessarily made happy. And this is true of women over 50. I mean, this is my favorite point, because obviously I'm a woman over 50. And we used to think that after menopause, women they were no longer beautiful and began to decline and die. Well, 50, 60, 70, 80, and counting, I have a new word for women over 50, which is regenopause. I'm regenerating. Why? Life purpose. Wow. So I think life extension and life purpose go together.
Life extension and life purpose, boy, they should go together, shouldn't they?
They should, because if you're going to have life extension without life purpose, then there's a type of misery that comes with aging.
Yeah. I mean, it's degenerate. It's the opposite of what you just described.
Right.
To a generative process.
And for men, I talk women, of course, because being a woman, but I had a discussion with Neil Donald Walsh. I said, tell me about men. If women get turned on over 50 because they become more creative, how, and I call it regenopause. He said, you're absolutely right. I call it andropause. Neil felt that men over 50 who may or may not yet have found their life purpose, may or may not be in a good relationship, but even deeper than that is their creativity. And what's happening with men now, even more, it's more challenging often than with women, because men have to perform in society more than an 80-year-old woman. I mean, nobody cares what she does. But men, they're supposed to be succeeding. When a man has a deeper life purpose and says yes to it, he's becoming an evolutionary creator in the masculine form. And it's a very beautiful thing, because most feminine co-creators, most evolving women are yearning for partnership with masculine co-creators rather than trying to be better than. We're not trying to be better than, we're trying to co-create with our beloveds, our families, our partners, and whatever is coming our way. So this love affair, we're in a love affair.
Yes, and this generative process, which you've been talking about, but just to kind of frame that, because one of the other things you've said here is in Homo Universalis, there's of course the unity consciousness comes in, but the generative consciousness is coming in. So this whole creative, you were just talking about that, but these two things come together. This is part of what Homo Universalis is. It's what Neil was commenting on too.
Exactly, and creativity and creator go together. So from the spiritual side of things, when a person finds what's most creative inside the person, that person is contacting the divine. And I'm discovering on the deep spiritual element of this, that by saying yes to my own creativity about awakening the new species, I'm saying yes to that God force, that sacred impulse in everybody to be more, love more, and create more. You're saying yes to God. God internalizes as you are yearning to love more and create more. This is a new way of joining with God, actually.
Yeah, and accessing this all of the God imagination and creativity, which is because we're all, we're like waves to the ocean. The ocean is God, and we're all a part of God. That's what this is all coming back to, emanations of the divine, not just humanity, but all of life. But let me go to something that's beautiful. You talked about this a little earlier, and I want to just come back to it, because you said where many of us have been awed at the experience of child being born. Birthing Homo Universalis is just that kind of experience. We're witnessing the birthing process as friends and loved ones emerge as a wholly new species. A critical difference this time, though, is that we are being reborn in the process, but truly together, we're looking out on the world with new eyes and a whole new worldview. Get our head or heart around that one.
I try to imagine if I were early Homo sapiens in the Neanderthal world, I would look pretty much the same. I wouldn't have been able to see as early Homo sapiens how different I was than Neanderthal. But here's a really important point. Nature does not preserve species. Nature preserves purpose. Homo Neanderthal basically doesn't exist. Homo erectus doesn't really exist. Homo sapiens is different than, we're not saying we're going to not exist as Homo sapiens, but I do believe that Homo sapiens must give birth to a co-evolving, co-creative human, or Homo sapiens will self-destruct. You see, nature put danger in the system. We're in danger. Yeah. And what we're talking about is not that everything is perfect and lovely and good. We're saying this danger and this crisis is the evolutionary driver for Homo Universalis. And also, I'd like to say a word about high tech, and particularly artificial intelligence. When I went to Singularity University and heard Ray Kurzweil and Peter Diamandis speak, is that they are applying artificial intelligence to kids in Tanzania, trying to bring solar energy into huts. And what Peter Diamandis says is, if there's a problem, we love trying to solve it. And I'd like us to re-understand high technology as not something alien, but something that needs to be guided with love. And I would like the Awakening Homo Universalis to guide high tech with love, with love.
Yeah. So which this whole then concern that gets a lot of media attention of artificial intelligence taking over the world, and we're like house cats, as some have used those terms exactly. That no, as we go in this direction, Homo Universalis, that there's a merging of just beingness and automation as we make this evolutionary step that is really beautiful. And of course, that's what's described also, and you mentioned Neil's new book is Conversations with God book, Awaken New Species. That's exactly what's described there. But Barbara, let's just talk about this Awaken New Species intensive, this call to action that's 52 weeks. So 52 weeks is a long time, 90 minutes every week. You're going to personally lead it. I think the program, as you've described it, is 60 minutes, a 60-minute program followed by 30 minutes Q&A. Do you want to talk about this 52-week intensive specifically? You're leading it for a whole year, and this is when we talk about Homo Universalis. This is kind of the end point, and we can maybe talk about the celebration a little before we close too. But
well, it's not a long time to take 1 year to become a new species. So let's not be concerned. That the reason I want it to be, and you invited it to be 52 weeks, there happens to be 52 codes, so it was easy. And the last code is called Victory is Assured. For all those whose consciousness is shifting, victory is assured. So what we're going to be doing is each week, I will be very deeply aware of all the people on this course, because they will be expressing themselves in a variety of ways. And I will be able to tune in to where we are. And let's say I'm not going to have a speaker on a particular day. I'm going to be tuning in to the feeling of what people are experiencing. And by sharing it in an empathetic, resonant field of X number of hundreds of people that will be on this course, each person's inner impulse will be enlarged. I've seen it happen. It happened when I taught on Shift. I was able to teach people to speak from within their own direct knowing. I will be inviting participants to read a code a day, a code a week, a page a week is going to be your homework, and then to come from within and express on the internet course how it feels for you to be coming forward, or the challenges you're facing, or what's happening to you. So there'll be a lot, it's not just dialogue, but it's real exploration. Then when other people who are on there begin to interact with each of us, we'll be in what I call a field. And I don't think we have ever created a field of Homo Universalis before. And if this is accurate, the field phenomenon picks up more universal intelligence. We're all going to become more intelligent, more creative, and more loving, because the field will be an empathetic, resonant ambiance that we're all going to be in. And, we might get to feel ecstatic. or not. Also, I do want to say something. I'm going to suggest to everyone, they take this little book and they go home. Now, so you go home and your husband says to you, or your wife says to you, well, what are you doing? You're becoming a what? So I'm also offering guidance as what to do when you go home. And basically, you sit down with this little book and say to a person, let's do this together. You become a teacher of your own self evolution by sharing it with at least one loved one or a neighbor. We're going to also offer a movie called Our Story. It's a 40-minute movie I did that tells the whole story from the origin of creation to us being born like this. So you could have a party and have a movie party. And you invite your neighbors. But what I would like all the people on this course, on this intensive, is to be able to articulate who they are. Because a lot of people are feeling things they never express. So they don't really know each other well. And I learned to dare to express the innermost feelings, whether they're good or not so good. Like even as a teacher, if I'm feeling depressed, I'll say, here's what's happening to me. And here's what I'm doing about it. In other words, I am going to be a peer co-creator rather than just a teacher of the radically new. I'm not a teacher of this. I'm an explorer of this. I'm a new norm with others of this. I'm excited about what it'll do for me.
Beautiful, Barbara. Yeah, and I wanted to bring in that you were very specific about this even at the beginning when you were reaching out to me as a friend and you were saying, this is not a course. This is not a course. This is an initiation into a new way of being. And
right.
Great difference. And you kind of talked about that a little bit there.
It's an initiation because of the timing on the planet. And here's something that a lot of people only see the breakdown piece of it. They don't see the breakthroughs. And there's a book I read recently by Ramez Nam. It's about the infinite, innovative creativity of humanity in every field. And while we're seeing breakdowns, we don't notice the innovations. And in this book, he started to categorize innovations in health, education, science, and technology. And when they're looked at synergistically, all these separate innovations, you see a new culture is being born now. So I'm not a futurist in this sense. Right. We're trying to catch up with what's happening right now, including breakdown, breakthrough. And I wouldn't be surprised that this intensive is a contribution to, at the end, we would like to have like a Theater for the Future celebration of a planetary awakening in love with music and voices and images and light. And I've talked to some musicians about this, and one of them said, if I could produce a musical event of a planetary birth, I would be the happiest musician alive. So I'm going to be inviting artists and musicians to join with us. And hopefully they will be on the intensive with us. But by the end, we're going to do something we've never done before, is celebrate a planetary birth together.
Yeah.
And we're the ones being born. We're the ones.
Beautiful. So this is in the September-ish timeframe, 2018, for all the people that are part of this call to action or intensive or 52-week intensive. So again, to see details here on this intensive, you can go to awakeningnewspecies.com or just awakennewspecies.com. If you'll see a lot of details. If you get an inner yes when you read about the course, and we invite you to join with us. Some of the keynotes during the program include Neil Donald Walsh, Urban Laszlo, Thomas Hubel, Barnett Bain, Greg Braden, Nassim Harriman, are just a few. There actually are lots of keynotes. This is primarily a Barbara-led intensive. So the keynotes are going to come in, as Barbara mentioned, not just to give speeches, but in the energy, in the embodiment of their own Homo Universalis.
Yes, yeah, they'll be in a way participants in what we're doing together, rather than, I think I really have to stop the word keynote.
Yeah.
Because we don't need keynotes and we don't need speeches.
Right.
Anymore.
Right.
And yet it's wonderful to get a Nassim Harriman saying what's happening to him. He's just in Egypt. And so we're going to have awesome discovery, revelation. Revelation is another word.
Yeah, great. Thank you for bringing that in. That is beautiful, because each of these speakers, as Barbara was reaching out to him, was being very specific about, I want you to be bringing in what's new in you. What did Homo Universalis just speak to this team from where you are as you're embodying this? So beautiful. The program begins on Tuesday, November 7th, so just around the corner. The program's been priced at $1,497. That's 40% off the regular price. It's priced at $1,497, but it's being offered at $997. So that's the 40% off price. That's the special pricing that's available until November 7 when the class begins, and then the price will go up. So it's a great value now. Invite you to check it out. And also, just on the topic of great value, this is Barbara did evolutionary journey or journey of the conscious evolutionary 3.0 not too long ago, and that was a 5-month intensive for $997. This is a 12-month intensive for $997, and we spent time talking about this. We're a nonprofit and humanities team. Barbara's a nonprofit, and our largest objective here is tipping point, is Homo Universalis, is evolution, is taking advantage of this synchronicity, calling. And Barbara, you might want to talk about that. We'd originally talked about pricing it more toward what something would be that's 90 minutes fit for 52 weeks. We came down to $997 for that reason. You might want to put your own words around that.
Well, I think that if I had my total druthers, I'd give everything away. But see, here's the thing about entrepreneurship. When my father was an entrepreneur and I used to not really appreciate it, what's really great about entrepreneurship is it creates resources. It's resource generating. So that it is necessary for each one of us, including everybody who's going to be on this course. One of the things, like you're already teaching at Humanities Team with your conscious business, the universe is a great business. The universe generates resources out of nothing. So I would like everybody who's taking this course, this intensive, to recognize their own entrepreneurship about what they want to create, so that we would be cultivating resource generation. And we have to do that for ourselves or we won't go on. So all of this, let's put the concept of resource generation into one of the things that will be offered during the year. So as people find their deeper life purpose and say yes to it, either they'll find partners on the course or they'll find it somewhere else. But let's say we want to empower everyone to become an evolutionary entrepreneur.
Yes.
Rather than no one. Let's have everyone.
Absolutely. And we can't possibly in this short space of time cover all the details that are part of Awaken New Species. Barbara mentioned one, a resource area, a library area. There are a lot of things. A celebration event. There's a celebration event that's going to be at Sunrise Ranch in Loveland, Colorado, around September of 2018. That all of the people are going to be invited to. They're part of this. So go to awakennewspecies.com to get all the details. Let me just bring in that there are some bonuses that go with registration for the course. There's a program that we did with Marianne Williamson, Barbara, and I, where we talked to her about her own journey in oneness. One with Nassim Harriman, who's the director of the Resonance Project, talking to him about his work. A program with Neil Donald Walsh, who's the founder of Humanities Team, that talks about his conversations with God journey. And then a program with Bruce Lipton, Barbara Marx Hubbard, Nassim Harriman. That's a 90-minute program that the four of us did together. A program with Ricky Byers-Beckwith that was awesome. When we talk about generative, creative, and so on, it was that. There actually are 12 of these bonus programs, and they're valued at about $680. So, and we're putting all of that into the registration process for this intensive as well. So, just invite you to get in touch with your own. Go to Awaken New Species, read about it, and just see if this is something you get an enter yes around or not. Barbara, do you have any final words for us here as we're wrapping up?
Well, I just wanted to say a little bit more about the Homo Universalis library. It was J.J. Hertag and Desiree Hertag. They're outstanding spiritual futurists worldwide. And I've asked J.J. to help coordinate a library of everyone's books and tapes, not your own and those that people most admire. So we're going to end up for the first time with this intensive, with something that it can be offered to humanity that won't go away. And I, as one who learned so much from Teilhard and Aurobindo and Bucky, we're going to offer that to humanity from this course, and that would include everybody's book and teaching who's on the course.
Fantastic. That's, again, one of many things. There are a lot of things that we're building into this. All the details are at awakennewspecies.com. We are going right into a live 30-minute Q&A. So we'll see you there. Don't go away. This just ends the part where Barbara and I go back and forth just describing what this program is. So thanks and love. And we'll see you in 1 minute.
Thank you, Steve. Thank you so much.
Thanks, everybody. Thank you.
Yeah.
Awesome. I'm excited.
Yeah, me too. Thank you.
Can you access videos, the intensive videos in your own time? And the answer to that is yes. There are a fair number of people actually not in North America or North, South, Central America, in Europe, Asia, etc., that are interested. And there actually are people right now in those geographies that are watching, and thank you to those of you who are here with us in your time zone, and it's 1 or 2 in the morning. I know we've gotten messages from some of you, so thank you for being with us. But we're making it convenient for you here during this 52-week intensive. We are archiving all of the materials. We'll be sending out links right after each program. The programs are Tuesday evening, 5 to 6:30 p.m. Pacific time. So you'll have those links as well. We'll have an archive so that you can go in and review the materials. So that was one of the questions. I want to also share, there was a question about the library, which Barbara addressed. The wheel of co-creation, are people going to fit into a slot? And hi, Barbara, I'm going to come to you here in 1 second. We've got a whole bunch of questions here. And again, thank you, viewers, for just bringing in so many comments and questions. It's wonderful. There was a question about payment plans. So let me just take those real quick. When you go to awakennewspecies.com, you'll see there's that $1,497 pricing. It's $997 now until the course begins on Tuesday, November 7th. And then at midnight that night, the price goes up back to, I'm not sure if it's $1,497 or $200 or $300, but you wouldn't want to pay any more than $997. So, again, you might take a look at the site. You can read all the materials. That covers a lot more than we cover here. And as well, there are the payment plans. There's a monthly payment plan. There's also a quarterly payment plan, so you can decide what's right for you. As well, on the site, we'll be putting up the link to the library that Barbara mentioned, the library of books and other resources that we're keeping that are focused on awakening the new species. And we'll be putting a link to Wheel of Co-Creation, what we call in Humanities Team Oneness, and the 12 Spheres of Life, so that you can go and be in touch with other people that are doing work in the particular sphere that interests you. Barbara, I'm going to come over to you here. Again, we got so many questions, we won't be able to get to them all. And thank you again for your interest, everybody, in coming in here with your questions and comments. Barbara, one of the questions was, is there a reason for the 52 codes? And related to that, as you look at this 52-week program, you have been sharing with me, well, it's really in 3 parts, Steve, and you might want to talk about that as well.
Well, I have to admit that, can you hear me?
Yes, yeah.
The 52 weeks came out because in going through my journal where I was receiving this higher guidance, we found 52 codes, Carolyn Anderson and I, that we felt were most valuable. So we wrote them all down, and then we began to practice them with each other. And when we said these codes to each other, we got deeply vibrationally turned on. And we realized they're not just an instruction, they're a vibration. And it turned out we picked 52. And then when we started this course, we realized we want a year. So I would say it was by sheer happenstance. The 52 codes and 52 weeks and awaken the new species all came together.
And the perfect, and the three parts, Barbara, the three parts as you talk about this 52-week intensive. And
well, the three parts that come out really together from to be a Homo Universalis are your spiritual evolution. So each of us who's awakening feels more of an inner impulse of creativity. And I'm assuming that inner impulse comes from the creator within. And we can call it God, spirit, implicate order. But what happens in Homo Universalis is you really get turned on by the inner spirit of the divine saying, I and you are one. Now, we've heard this from all the great spiritual teachers, God and you are one. Well, when you get turned on to the inner impulse of your spiritual evolution, you and it are one. And when you say one to that, and you realize that's who you are, that gives the inner impulse an opportunity to turn on more. In other words, you have to be the yes here. The second part of this is vocational evolution. And you know, I've used this phrase, vocational arousal. Now, vocational arousal is you are turned on by the yearning to express more of your creativity, that you are turned on by life purpose that's more than just my job or what I think I can do. It seems to be from an inner impulse that's spiritual, but it has life purpose in it. Like you and me, why are you doing this, Steve? Who told you to leave a very profitable job and go do this? Okay. Who told me, Barbara, to stop being a normal person and say yes to the inner impulse and try to figure out how to communicate and then suddenly run for vice president of the US? Then if you look at me from the outside, it looks ridiculous. But if you look at me from the inside of vocational arousal, I ask everybody listening, you have a vocation that is internally gifted. And when you say yes to it, it turns on both spiritually and vocationally, and you start to be vocationally aroused. And then what happens to you? You seek to join genius. And joining genius is the next step after joining genes to have a baby. Nature put sexuality into the system to get us to have so many babies. Well, we did a really good job. Here's what I think. Nature is putting vocational arousal and joining genius as the next phase of love. We're being turned on here. This is not really hard, folks. It's creative. And then the third part of this is high tech. And I wouldn't say just high tech, it's also scientific understanding of the cosmos, like an Irvin Laszlo or Bruce Lipton. How does that universal process of creation work? And how are we now expanded with the powers we used to attribute to gods? Well, the answer is a new species. Nature is creating us to be an emergent humanity capable of restoring the earth, freeing the people from depression and sickness, and exploring the vast inner regions of inner and outer space. So we are celebrating that.
Fantastic. And let's see here. I want to, a question has come back around a few times, they want a reiteration of the date and time, how this works. So there is another webinar that'll be different than this one, a free webinar that Barbara and I are going to do next week, on Thursday next week, if you have further questions. The program itself then will start right after that. Starts on Tuesday, November 7th. So you want to go look at your calendar here. if you're getting that enter, yes, it starts on Tuesday, November 7th. And the live program is going to be 5 to 6:30 p.m. Pacific time. But again, links will be sent out. There's an archive. So, because there's probably a few people that are going to be free for 52 weeks on Tuesdays, 5 to 6:30 p.m.
I want to say something here, Steve. I just been working on the first 4 sessions before we actually go into the code. And I'm going to tell about experience of becoming your own universal self. And then I'm inviting our first guest, is a woman called Diane Collins, who wrote a book called Do You Quantum Think? Now, I hope everyone knows what this is, but I'll tell you in case you don't. Quantum thinking is recognizing that thought creates. Intention creates reality. As we go through the 52 weeks, quantum thinking, that our own intentionality becomes reality in a field of resonance and faith. This is what all the great spiritual teachers have ever taught us. Like Jesus said, you will do the works that I do, and greater works will you do in the fullness of time. He recognized maybe it wasn't quite then. What if it's now? I think now is the fullness of time, because we're at a planetary shift point toward devolution or evolution. So that's why I think it's exciting.
Fantastic. And that's just a little taste of what's to come. Yeah, Barbara and I've been going through her plan for her first month as this launches on Tuesday, November 7th. And it's awesome. And just to think that this is a generation that's becoming together, this Homo Universalis, amazing, our evolutionary self. And Barbara, one of the questions here is, what are the signs? What are the signs of becoming our Homo Universalis?
I would say inner excitement, yearning to fulfill your deeper heart's desire, having some sense that your heart's desire for greater love, greater creativity is God's impulse as you. It's affirming your heart's desire as good. You know, it's cultivating your expression of who you want to be. And I saw a question from somebody saying, isn't it just enough to be, Barbara? Why should we just always be coming? And so I want to tell her, if you can just be, you will be coming. You can just be, because you are the universe in person. And the universe in person is becoming through you. Now, that is my opinion. You can question me and doubt it. But no, that's thought. Anyway.
Beautiful. Barbara, this whole dimension, you talked about this a little bit during our program, but I want to come back to it because it's so important. This whole dimension of planetary call, that this is a planetary call, that you knew that now you were to do this, and that it's beyond even an intensive or celebration or anything. You and I've talked quite a bit about this. It's on the level of, oh my God, we've even called it a God job, that, oh my God, this is on the level of something that needs to happen on the earth now, of coming together of people, of becoming this together, and then a celebration together at its end point. Do you want to just talk a little more about that?
Well, we've all heard about the crisis on Earth, particularly starting with climate change. We've heard that in our lifetime, we could experience a devolution of our whole system. We haven't fully heard that at that same shift point, we could be experiencing the evolution of our system by connecting innovations and creativity in spirit toward a higher potential for humanity. I believe that the intention to express our creativity in love will help make the shift on this planet. I think it will help shift us from devolution toward evolution or conscious evolution, because nature put freedom in the system. It is not a robotic universe. God is not controlling everything from outside, nor is it a pointless and meaningless universe, as certain materialists say. It's an intentional universe, and you're the intention. So I don't know why I'm laughing at myself, but the intention in you and me and anybody who's listening, where is that intention coming from? I mean, Steve, what are you doing here? How do you care about global oneness?
Yeah, well, boy, I mean, I'm just like probably a lot of viewers. And as you mentioned, for the back in the 90s, I was an entrepreneur in Silicon Valley in high growth companies, 2 of them, and then sold everything to become part of this whole unfolding of this Homo Universalis, that clearly this planet wasn't supposed to just keep going in the direction of CO2 emissions and income inequality and GMO and all of the kinds of things that we see. Clearly, that wasn't the future, that we have a destiny that's bigger than that, and that I can contribute to that. And I suppose that's part of the reason that all of us are here, isn't it, Barbara?
You know, the quality of being of a Homo Universalis is just what you said. Now, not everybody feels this way, but somehow you feel there's a deeper expression that you're here for. And that your own creativity has a purpose greater than just your own self-interest. Now, that's a type of person. But there's more and more of us, and what most of us who feel that way need is a place to identify what we want to create and identify who we can co-create with. Because almost nobody can do this alone. Now, it's really interesting, Steve, you do not find this in universities. I went to Bryn Mawr College, which is a good women's college. The last thing they were asking me is my vocation of destiny. Yeah. I had no idea my vocation of destiny. And the question I had is, where am I going to get a job after college? Well, Washington, okay, major in politics. I did. And I didn't get a job in Washington. But the point is that most liberal arts education is not doing the most important thing, which helping us tap into life purpose, vocation, inner impulse, and then design what you're going to be studying in relationship to that impulse. That takes cultivation. And I feel what we're doing on our this awakening is cultivating inner impulse of creativity in all of us, including me and you, Steve. We will not be the same when this is over.
No. So this is wonderful, Barbara. You are demonstrating right now the energy of Homo Universalis. It's wonderful. Because I said, well, Barbara, what are the signs? Laughter, joy. And we're certainly feeling into that now. And that's what this is, a community of people coming together. It's wonderful that it's on video and Zoom, that it's going to have a huge interactive component like this, where Barbara and team will be taking questions and coming back to you. Some have wondered, in fact, one of the questions was, is it a new person that's going to lead this every week? No, no, it's not. This is Barbara. Barbara is the leader and elder and catalyst that is driving this for the full 52 weeks. She is bringing in these beautiful people, Nassim Harriman and Thomas Hubel and Neil Donald Walsh and Bruce Lipton, Greg Braden, and other really beautiful people. A lot of names as well that you haven't heard of that are just really stunning. And they'll be coming in for Barbara said you about 15 or 20 minutes when you bring them in?
Yes, and what's going to be interesting, and they're all agreeing to this, they're not coming in to tell their usual life purpose and what they're offering, they're coming in to share what's new in them. Now, I love to hear that from Nassim. You see, I'd love to hear that from Bruce Lipton and Thomas Hubel. So I'm going to have, and Steve, you and I will have a deep conversation with everybody coming on to say, let's explore together. And then the people who are tuned into this will be not just asking questions, but sharing, resonating. And I'd like to say, I believe we can create a resonant field of high frequency vibrations in every one of us that will affect the consciousness field of Earth. Now that's a bold statement, but why not?
Well, it will.
What does affect the consciousness field of Earth, but consciousness?
Yes, yes. So also, Barbara, and we've only got a couple more minutes, but let me just hit a few other things because there are many questions, some that have come back around more than once. The 52 codes, yes, the ebook is going to be sent out to people when they sign up. As well, there's a co-creator handbook that you'll be learning about that we'll be sending out that's a part of this program. People have asked about the Q&A or small groups. Yes, and one of the features of this, it's a 90-minute program for 52 weeks. And as Barbara's laid this out, the first 60 minutes is the program itself. And then that'll be followed by the 30-minute Q&A where it'll be very personal and deep and just with the kind of energy and closeness, intimacy even, that we have here now.
You know, Steve, I just want to say briefly about the Q&A. What I've learned to do is not so much Q&A, but sharing from your own inner reality.
Yes, yes. Thank you for that, because that's so important. Let's talk about that.
We're not just doing Q&A. That's really passé. They're going to be sharing from their own inner experience, and it can be questioned, yes, but who has the answer to your... It's not like, oh, I have the answer to everything. I have a response to your impulse. So we're going to create a resonant field of greater knowing. And what I've learned from this is everybody gets to be more of who they truly are.
Perfect. I'm so glad we stopped on that point. It's such an important point. Barbara, thank you. Yes. Yes. Because that's what, you know, so it's the opportunity for community to bring whole expression of Homo Universalis.
I ask you now, Steve, how do we create a new world? That's Q&A, and you have to come up with an answer. No.
Right. Yeah, we're lighthouses, so to speak. We're in that place of connection with the divine. Those are terms I would use for this.
Yeah.
But, by the way, let's also, I know we covered this a little bit, but as we're wrapping up here, I want to come back to the celebration event because it's so cool. That as we're planning this, that everybody that's a part of this is going to be invited to come out to Colorado. There's a place called Sunrise Ranch. It's actually where Barbara is right now. It's where Barbara lives. It's an amazing place. It's actually not very far from my home. I'm going to be there, of course, also. And just a huge celebration is going to be planned over a weekend where Homo Universalis really opens its collective eyes together. Huh, Barbara?
We're going to show up together. I mean, showing up together as Homo Universalis is a first, as far as I know. And we'll see who we are. We'll discover who we are by being together.
Yes, yes, we will. And there's also a lot of really fun celebration. We're already talking to people, musicians and entertainers and things. So we're going to have so much fun with that. We want to try and pull it ahead to maybe like around September. Don't have this, locked down yet. David Karchier, who leads Sunrise Ranch and the Divine Emissaries, there actually are multiple campuses, is real excited about this. And we're already talking about how we can plan this celebration event. So I think we better, I know it's, we have some people in as far away as Eastern Europe that are tuned in. So I want to have integrity to the time and not have people sitting here at their in front of their workstation so late at night. So, I want to just say thank you to all of you for being here with us. Go check out awakennewspecies.com. You can read about this whole thing more carefully, and then just meditate into it. Be with it. Go into the stillness and see, are you to be one of these people that are going to become Homo Universalis together? Would love to have you if you get that inner yes. And thank you. Thanks so much for joining us here today. Gratitude. We're going to start this program in just about 10 days. So hope to see a lot of you there.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you so much.
Okay. Love and thanks. Namaste.
Namaste. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.